testimony. Hey everybody, back again with another episode, a solo episode tonight. Trying out the camera again by myself to hopefully figure out any kinks and hopefully to get some awesome video for you guys. It was such a blessing to have Travis and Pastor Garrett come on and talk about fatherhood. And I know that the clips are great, and I know that they bless people. They're little nuggets throughout the day, but don't miss out on an episode and leave yourself hanging by just listening to the clips, because there's something about the whole conversation that's so beautiful. And in this topic specifically with fatherhood, I think it's something that's so prevalent in today's society. I learned a lot of revelation from those guys sitting down and listening to them, and how they put it so articulately that we as fathers are representatives of God, our Father. And I never really thought of fatherhood that way, and I don't know why I hadn't really sat down and mulled that over. That puts a lot of importance to our roles that we should really take pause in and reflection on. There should be joy in that the Lord is trusting us with his children, and for this season they're our children. So he gives us like a sneak peek behind the curtain view of what it's like. You know, every time your kid does something that makes you happy, imagine that feeling that the Lord gets every time we get it right. You know, every time we're obedient, he delights in it. So I just wanted to catch you guys up on the last couple of weeks. Sorry if I sound weird. I have a little bit of a head cold going on. I didn't have a guest this week, so I've tried to record a new intro and a new outro, and there's no way of knowing what it looks like. So I hope I have a new intro and a new outro, but we won't know until I get home. My goal is to have it all videoed and on audio, because on Spotify you can put the video on there as well now. So yes, I'll still upload them to YouTube and all that, but if I can have it all on Spotify, that's really where I want to strive to be. I'll put them on YouTube, and if it gets traction, great, praise the Lord. And I can start posting the links for those if you guys are interested in the YouTube. But with Spotify, the thing is, I can listen to it in my car, lock my phone, and I don't lose the audio. On YouTube, I can't watch YouTube videos and lock my phone. It will stop the video. So on Spotify, it gives people the opportunity, if they're not doing anything and they want to watch, they can watch, and they can also listen. So that's really why I like Spotify so much. I wanted to dive in a little bit. I know I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, to a trip to Branson, and how it was such a good week. The teaching that they have there at Keith's church that week specifically, it's a week of increase. It's a conference they do, and it's giving based. So they usually have some kind of thing that they're giving into for the church. And we were able to be a part of giving into a $3 million seed. And it grows your faith, because our church is in this growing of giving season. And it was really awesome to get to see it there in Branson, see what the fruit of what we're starting in Faith Center is just the starting point. You know, we're in this pre-launch season, so we're just going to see more giving. You know, our church is finally debt-free and now has some liberty and freedom to start pursuing a kids ministry area, maybe a bigger sanctuary. So, and also giving into the community more. There's just more growth to be had. Some people want to see growth in the church and they want to be dismissive of it, but it's important that we have the tools that are necessary. You know, I was reading a little book today or yesterday from a guy who grew up in he was teaching in the 40s and 50s. And pastors were supposed to be wearing out the bottoms of their pants and they're basically supposed to scrape by. And it's just a poverty mindset that the world wants the church to have. And I just don't think it's biblical. And I think that people struggle with it because money can resort to greed and other sins so quickly, but if used with the right heart, it really is just a tool. And if you see it as that way, if you think our church growing, it can't just happen without resources. And the more it grows, the bigger the capacity grows. The more money put in, the more money put into the church means more resources for the people in need, better everything. You can build a bigger sanctuary, but it's not just about, more people. Keeping a heart willing to serve the Lord and having Him bring the people that are supposed to be there. And it's going to lead to more salvations, more radical lives being changed. And that's what we're here for, is changing lives. I got to do a couple podcasts with Sarah and Debbie. Sarah offering up this space has been such a blessing, such an awesome opportunity. Driving down here is just a fresh restart. I feel like it's really exciting. She had an amazing testimony, a lot of really interesting things to say. Her heart for the Lord, you can't deny it. And I had Debbie on, who her son and I, have a relationship now, Garrett, who was just on. And so it was really cool to get to hear more of her story. And I really appreciate her heart. She's been sharing all the clips and really just broadcasting the podcast. So thank you so much for that, Debbie. It's just awesome to get to share a little bit of your story. I even catch myself re-listening to some of those and missing little questions I could have asked, or pressing in a little bit deeper into some stuff. But that's the beauty of getting to have people come back. I want to thank all the veterans. I'm recording this on Veterans Day, but it won't come out till next week. So I think it's so cool how God works things out on this podcast. Without me even trying, if I was trying to do certain things in my own strength, I could never do it as good as God can. And one of the things I want to share with you guys is with Debbie's podcast, it was the 77th episode. And Garrett has taught to the youth and told us, the youth leaders, about how 7 is like his burning bush. He sees the number everywhere. God's always pointing out the number 7 to him. And so I hadn't been numbering the podcast. It was kind of like all over the place whenever I was posting for a while. Just numbers were all scattered. So I went back, and it took me like an hour, maybe not an hour, but a long time to go back and renumber all the podcasts, give them in a numerical order, because I have like different categories, and I don't know why, if the Lord's leading me to do something different with that, but I love the talks I have with my dad. I love keeping them as the Kelly Chronicles. The times I get to have my wife on is special, so I can do wisdom with my wife. And then this new season of getting to just have more conversational podcasts with the family of my church, Faith Center Family. I'm all about alliteration. But 7 is his number. 7 is Garrett's number. And so I'm renumbering them all, and I got that done probably an episode or two before Debbie came on. And then, lo and behold, if I wouldn't have sat there and done that, it wouldn't have been episode 77. And I had no plan on her being the 77th episode. She reached out to me and said she was ready, and we lined it up. And so it's just so cool that God is not only speaking through her testimony to like all of you, but even more so to her son. And that it's a little nugget for him. And I'm so appreciative of that. I love getting to be a part of that. He's always at work. I'm probably not going to talk to you guys for very long tonight. I don't have a whole lot of stuff to catch you up on. It's just, I want to continue to do this. By the time you guys hear this, both parts of the Fatherhood podcast will be out. I think it's just so crucial that we as men look at what a fatherhood role looks like. what it looks like to be disciplined is so important. I just don't know if there's enough focus on it, and even in my life. But I've been reading in Numbers. So if you guys listen to the podcast, you're probably thinking, man, you should probably be through Numbers already. You were in like Leviticus like months ago. So I'll admit I have backslid on my daily reading, but I have been listening to the word in my van. And I know that we've talked about in the podcast, everyone's reading or listening is different. And there's no good excuse. I'm going to get back into reading my word every day. But I have tried to at least supplement with listening. And man, in the car, I've listened to the whole entire New Testament in the last few weeks. And I can listen to a good chunk of it in a day. So I can really sit there and pick a day. And I've been listening to Psalms and Proverbs. I'm kind of battling a little bit of this head cold. And my dad's a big healer, a big healing guy. Always talks about miracles. He wants to see his brother healed. And my sons are battling some kind of nasal something. And I was like, I had kind of questioned my wife jokingly, like, what did David do? What did King David do if he got like a cold? And there's a couple very powerful Psalms of him. He's obviously under some kind of condition. He's obviously sick with something. I want to say in the 20s or 30s or the 30s and 40s. I know that's a good chunk, but there's two different Psalms in there specifically where he's like, heal me, Lord, forgive me of my sins and heal me. And so I know where to go and turn to now with this sickness that's I'm battling. I realized that I was struggling with my faith on believing for a home. If you guys have listened, I'm believing for a debt-free home. I believe the Lord told me that he's giving me a debt-free home. He's giving me a home. And it's one of those things. We had this house that was on our heart. And we were just praying and believing that it was going to be within our price range. The lady was supposed to reach out to us, and months had went by since we've talked to her. And really nothing. So I finally reached out and she reached back, and it's not really the price we were hoping for. And I'm deflated, I'm like, I don't know. My flesh was kind of bugged. I was just kind of bugged in general that she didn't even reach out. But my wife is like unfazed, and she is as sure can be about this house. And if it's not, I know she'll be graceful in it and allow it to pass by if the Lord shuts the door. But she's got some serious faith. That's very rewarding for me to have a wife who is so faithful. And Proverbs talks about, trusting your wife and having a wife you can trust. So I'm trying to piggyback off of her faith. And like I said, I was rereading that Prosperity. It's like a 50-book page. Like it's like a little itty bitty book. And it's real quick. We could read it in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So I was trying to read this pastor's point of view on it. He talks about how we can send forth ministering spirits. It's in Hebrews. But, when the going gets tough, it's the time to stand. A lot of times whenever I battle physical ailments like this head junk I'm battling with, I'll just scroll on my phone. I won't want to do much. But today I got up, I got my oil changed, got my tires rotated. My family and I went to go play some disc. My mom and dad went with me, disc golf, and just did stuff. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to stand on his word and not just go through the motions like I do most of the time. And the same thing with this house. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I'm claiming what the Lord has promised me. It might not be this house. I don't know. He hasn't shown us that yet. But I'm claiming what he promised. And there's a point where we have to stand on it. And I had to delete the Realtor app, guys. I mean, I was literally just looking. I mean, for me, I don't know. This might not be for everybody, so don't just take my word for it. Pray about it. But for me, it was like there's certain things that I see as temptations for me that I have to get rid of to clear my heart, because it doesn't take much for me to feel muddy, if that makes any sense. I downloaded Twitter to put clips on Twitter, and they were getting like 2 views, like nothing. Like TikTok, I'm getting like 700 views. So X was literally a waste of my time, but I was getting it was just straight political stuff. It was starting to feed me. So it was getting toxic. I had to delete the app. I had to set limits on other apps. Sports gambling became legal probably, a year or two ago in Kentucky. And I had just started to dabble in that. And I had to give it up because, was it fun? I was literally spending like a couple bucks a month. It was really nothing crazy, but I was kind of banking on hitting some kind of crazy parlay and making that my source. Yeah, so that's me. I can't do that kind of stuff. It was also, dabbling in the alcohol back then. The gambling is just another addiction in its own right. So I knew I had to keep myself from certain things, delete certain apps, set screen times for certain apps, because I don't want to be muddy all the time. I don't want to be stuck to this world all the time and forget my eternal purpose. I think the home's going to come when the home's going to come. And I'm blessed with where I am now. But I won't be able to remind myself of that if I'm looking on Realtor and I'm seeing all these homes, all the homes in our price range are unfinished, and anything just outside of our price range doesn't seem like it's quite good enough. Every home, almost every home, and I've said this before, what we've looked at has had foundational issues. Or the floors are warped, no telling what's going on. And I know that's a sign from the Lord that we are not quite on the foundation we need to be on yet. So it takes preparation, something that we've talked about on here. And I'm still in a season of preparation. Lord, mold me into what I need to be. It's not just a battle you win and then you're done. This is a lifelong battle. And sometimes we get so caught up in our lives that we forget we're in the middle of a battle. And so we use these things of the world to kind of like console us or to comfort us, but our comfort is in the Lord. So I'm reading in Numbers, and Numbers is powerful. It starts off slow, but there's a story about Aaron and Miriam and how they were kind of like talking about Moses. And, it's just one of those things. Let me see if I can find it. I mentioned this in the podcast with Garrett and Travis. First of all, it said this is in Numbers 12 if you guys want to read it. But they were kind of like calling Moses out a little bit. And the Lord tells them, he says this about Moses: "He is the one I trust. I speak to him face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the Lord as he is." And Miriam gets punished a little bit. And it's just one of those fascinating little stories of how the Lord was using Moses. If you go on chapter 14, I'm in the New Living Translation, by the way. And you guys got to hear this stuff. So the people ignore Caleb and Joshua, and so they don't listen to them, and they're like, we don't want to go to the promised land. They're literally at the footsteps of the promised land, like all they gotta do is go take it, and they say no. And the Lord was ready to do some stuff, And Moses reminds him in 14 verse 18, "The Lord is slow to anger and filled with unfailing love, forgiving every kind of sin and rebellion, but he does not excuse the guilty." But Moses is reminding him, Lord, you're slow to anger. And he's trying to convince the people. They won't listen. So God says, you're not going. And once the people find out the consequences, see, this ties into fatherhood. Sometimes we don't want to be disciplined. We don't want consequences for our actions. So the people are headstrong and prideful. We can't fight those people. They're like giants. We can't go take the promised land. And so God tells them the punishment. And they're just like, let's go, they said. We realize that we have sinned, and now we are ready to enter the land that God has promised us. So they're just, you know what they're doing? They're despising the beginnings of something, despising humble beginnings. And to the point they're so ignorant of what they're doing that they're just willing to say, all right, we'll just go in now. We learned our lesson. And Moses says, don't you go now. You'll be disobeying God. It's like, you already disobeyed him. Why disobey him some more? Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for checking out the WBF podcast, or as it's called, Walk by Faith. I think testimonies are so important. It gives us power over the enemy. And I really hope that these encourage you and bless you. And if you like the episode, please just share it with your friends and family. That's the biggest way you can support. Like and subscribe on the Spotify page or wherever you're watching. If you want to know about giving, just click the link below. But the biggest thing you can do is share this with somebody else, because you never know which testimony is going to touch somebody in your life. So I hope to see you guys next time, and thank you again.